guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is...
Pedo.
I thought you were Dr. X. What happened?
Did you want me to keep going with that? I don't know. I felt like it kind of pissed you off last time.
No.
Like I have a tendency when I come up with like a joke or something like that, like I just fuck it into the dirt. And just re-listening to last week's episode, which was one of my favorite that we've done so far, by the way. It's just, I was like talking about when Dr. X was in medical school and in my professional, I think I just took it like just a little bit too far, which I'm prone to do.
I mean, I enjoyed it. I didn't have a problem with it, so it was.
Well, and given, I didn't want there to be confusion, given not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but next week's guest.
Oh yeah.
Which,
well, that's
yeah. So I was like, hello, like you like to talk about synchronicities and shit, Jesus. But yeah, so I figured I would just drop the doctor. I don't know. I need to figure something out.
You kind of caught me off guard when you introduced yourself as Pat. I don't.
I like to keep you on your toes.
Fair. That's fair. So I had a very interesting occurrence happen this week. While I've been doing research for the episode, which, Pat, you already know about, but nobody else does. So I'll tell everybody. So I was giving a suggestion to somebody on like further reading into the things that I study and things like that. And of course I suggested John Keel, and
someone that you've mentioned on the show a couple times already too.
Yeah, it's that's basically okay. So I mean, just to clarify, that's basically what I'm doing is I am continuing John Keel's work. John Keel's he's gone now, and somebody has to do it. So I'm basically picking up where he left off and continuing on with his research. So I reference him a lot, and so. I've read all these books by him, which there's so goddamn many. Some of them are fucking expensive. It's crazy. I fucking read about this guy all the time. I know everything about the man pretty much. And I went to go pull up a specific book by him. And I went over to my Google search and I typed in John Keel. And I typed in Keele. Keel, because that's how it's spelled, and Google corrected me and pulled up Keel. And this has just blown my fucking mind. It's absolutely blown my mind. I personally, I'm sure a lot of our listeners have heard of the Mandela effect, and basically that's people have certain memories of different things from their childhood or from the past or whatever, and then come to find out that they remembered it incorrectly. I think it's named after Nelson Mandela because, a lot of people thought he died in prison, and then come to find out he did not die in prison. Another really big one is the Berenstain Bears. A lot of people remember Berenstein, not Berenstain. And I think that just happened because let me tell you, I've been doing this for a little over a year now, and I've been doing it seriously since probably about February, is when I've been doing this full time. And, it's always had an E at the end of it. This isn't like I read about John Keel when I was a teenager at some point and I just misremembered it. Like, this is a name that I read over and over and over again. And to me, there's no way to explain how all of a sudden it's not that. And I know, and like I know it is. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's crazy. I think it's crazy. So, there's nothing I can back this up with because, usually like in the Berenstain Bears case, you have a bunch of people that remember it as Berenstein. And, it's not like John Keel is a household name or anything like that. It's a very niche thing. And so, I'm not sure how to compare that. So, I mean, if you guys, if you're familiar with Keel at all and his work, I mean, please, because there's a term for people that study his work and we're called Keelians. And, I know it had an E at the end because I always thought that spelling out Keelian was weird because it had that extra E in it. I don't know. It's just it's a very strange thing.
You want my 2 cents?
Yeah, please.
So, I don't know, man. I could have swore that I left my keys on the kitchen table yesterday, and they were on the fucking couch. Like, people are wrong about shit all the time, and
Sure, yeah.
so there's two ways that I feel about this, and there's that like, yeah, I could have swore that I had more money in my bank account than I actually do,
Mhm,
or I could
yeah.
have swore that I told this person to be somewhere at a certain time, but I'm wrong and it didn't happen, right? So that's one way of looking at it. The other hand, no, fuck you, it's Bernstein Bears. And I'm looking at this right now and it says Bernstein Bears and it is abomination to my eyes. Because I remember having the spooky old tree as a kid growing up. And I remember how I looked at this book. This book was like a huge part of my childhood.
Right.
It was like, it was them and it was a spooky old tree. And the spooky old tree fascinated me. Obviously, I'm a horror fan and all that shit. And it was Bernstein
And you can
Bears.
just you're
Bernstein
so
Bears. What
sure.
the fuck is this? I don't know where this shit came from.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I think this from the whole Mandela effect thing totally reminds me of. I don't want to get too off on a tangent here, even though that's
Sure.
kind of like what we do. But have you ever seen the documentary Room 237
Mm.
about The Shining?
No, I mean, no, there is one
Okay.
though. I mean, I'm aware of
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Okay. No,
No, I know.
I wasn't asking for I'm not. I know I'm not crazy. I like. Yes, this documentary exists.
Yeah, you're just making
Um,
sure.
okay. um, but anyway, this documentary is all about the different theories that surround Stanley Kubrick's adaptation of Stephen King's The Shining,
Oh,
right?
okay.
And there's a lot of people that think that there's all kinds of like crazy symbolism and furniture. There's a lot of continuity. People are so convinced that like Stanley Kubrick is this master filmmaker, which I don't necessarily drink the Kool-Aid on. I like Clockwork Orange and Eyes Wide Shut, and that's just about it. But a lot of people think that he's such a masterful filmmaker that all these continuity errors in the movie couldn't possibly actually be continuity errors. They have to be secret messages that he's sending to the audience about the moon landing being faked, about Native American genocide, about all kinds of crazy
Yeah.
shit.
Right.
And I mean, this is a fairly recent documentary. I'd say it probably came out within the last 5 years. And you watch this thing, and it's really interesting to, and I really recommend that you watch it. Not because of the fact that it has to do with like a horror movie or filmmaking, but because it really has to do with conspiracy theories
Mhm.
and how driven some people are to find like hidden meaning in the absolute mundane
Right.
and the lengths that people will go to. It's not about the movie. The documentary isn't about the theories as much as it's about people's need to have conspiracy theories. And when I hear the Mandela effect, there's a part of me that connects those two, that says that it's people that just misremember shit. But at the same time, I can't explain it because I'm looking at the copy of The Spooky Old Tree, and this is not the same book cover that I grew up with,
It's wild, isn't
and
it? Yeah.
even the other one that I kind of give a little like that I really sit there and rack my brain about is the Shaquille O'Neal or the Sinbad Shazam thing, where like was Sinbad in a movie called Shazam, and everyone thinks that he was, but it
But it was
wasn't.
Shaquille O'Neal and Kazam.
Kazam, right?
Yeah.
But was Sinbad in one as well? And I'm thinking like, no, that just sounds like it would be right because he was a comedian. His name was Sinbad. Did a bunch of family friendly bullshit.
Sure. Yeah, that
But
would make sense. That's well, and right, and so that's yeah. Everyone that I've looked up, every single Mandela effect that I've come across, which for a long time I was really into it, but every single one, some of it I was like, that's kind of weird, but I could see that, I could see how it was wrong, and it's really this. Mine was Looney Tunes because I was a big Looney Tunes fan as a kid. And
yeah,
the way it's spelled is not what you think. The tunes is spelled Tunes, not Toons. And that one kind of had me questioning things, and I was like, And but other than that, I mean, even still, I'm like, well, who knows? I was a kid, I was a stupid kid, whatever. And
right.
so, I could have been wrong. But this is the first time where it's like, I do have a shit memory. I've done a lot of drugs. We've talked about this before. I do have a really bad memory. And
Right.
but at the same time, like, this is something that I have been doing fucking almost every day for almost a year now. And so it's like I look at that name at least once a day. And, how could I have gotten it so wrong? I mean, I can see it in my mind on the books that I own, on the insides of the books. I just see it everywhere, spelled the way that I'm familiar with it being spelled. And so it's like, it's so recent. That's the thing, is that usually these are old memories, and so it's like, oh yeah, they could get them wrong, but because it is so recent, I just don't see how it could be.
You know, when you know, that's what it
That's
comes
what they
down to.
say.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things that I feel like at the end of the day, um, when you know something so intrinsically, it can be sometimes hard to explain to somebody why you're that certain,
Yeah.
because it's like you
Well,
just know it.
yeah, that's fair.
And I was really thinking about this when I went back to kind of what brought me on the show was talking about my abduction experiences. Well, not that whole topic, and how there was a couple aspects of it that could be very easily explained if you just said, well, look, dude, you fell asleep on the couch,
Right, that just didn't
like you're like
happen.
whatever. And it's like, well, no, this is different. And I think that sometimes we just have that, like, you're willing to die on that hill, and you're willing to say, like, no, I know that something fishy's afoot here. You know what I mean? And I mean, if
Yeah.
you know, you know,
And
and
this is
that's
one
it.
of those well, and that's what I try to explain to people about making this documentary, is that most of it is that. Most of the knowledge that I have is just because I just know it. How do you translate that to an audience?
Well, I think you just gotta you gotta play that card sparingly, because otherwise you're
Yeah.
just somebody that goes off. I think that if you can prove 9 out of 10 things, and then that extra, your 10 for 10 is like, because I fucking say so. Like,
So like, well, and that's another issue with it, is like, so again, I'm making this documentary, which is eventually going to be a series of documentaries, and here, something strange happens, and my first thought isn't to pull out the camera and start filming my reaction to it or whatever, and I'm like, I need to get better at this. I'm a shitty director.
uh,
I'm just so bad about it. Whatever. I guess I'll use this clip explaining it all. But no, it was just, and I'll even give it that. Maybe it just seemed so mind blowing at the time because of the topics I happen to be talking about with the person, which we'll get into in a moment. We're already so, filled with all this high strangeness. And then, I happen to have a moment of high strangeness. So I don't
right.
know. Either way, I guess I'll adhere to this universe's laws now, and it's now different. So
Well, yeah, real quick, just to get this to put a nice little bow on this segment. If people are like, wait, what is the official explanation for the Mandela effect? So people think that, like, what happened, like, why did this?
oh yeah, sure, that's a good idea. So basically, people think that at some point we have, well, most of the time, not all, but a good chunk of people have slipped into some type of, could be a wormhole or a black hole or time warp or something, into another dimension. So they were once on a planet where, on an Earth, on a version of Earth where it was Berenstein, and they ended up slipping through time somewhere and they came here and now it's Berenstain. So that's what people, that's basically what the effect is that at some point, this shift has happened. Some people think that it happened in 2012. There's a theory about
Well, they turned on the Hadron Collider,
well, yes, some people think that
or
that
CERN, or
happened,
whatever. Yeah.
and then it, fucked everything up and kind of sent some of us. But then it's like, well, so what happened to the people that were originally here then? If you're one that wasn't originally here, what happened to you in this universe? Did you died at some point, or did you also flip to the other? I mean, what's the explanation there? I don't know, but
Right.
that's
You
the
know,
common knowledge of it.
I don't know if we actually see, this is a good example of the Mandela effect. I don't remember if we actually covered this topic, or if it was something that I researched that we didn't get to. But I remember we were supposed to do something about about reality being a simulation,
Okay,
and for one of our show topics.
we've talked about
And
that.
yeah, I think we brought it up, but I did a pretty deep dive on it. And One of the things that they say is that, you know, if you look at how much of our understanding of reality
Mhm.
is based on our senses and how easily our senses can be manipulated,
Right.
then our understanding of reality is very easily manipulated, and that lends some credence to the theory that we could, you know, I mean, I don't know if you've ever, a good example, not to keep beating a dead horse, but,
No,
you
it's
know,
okay.
someone that we had on not too long ago, you know, like
Oh.
that dude lives on a different fucking world than we do. Right. Or I don't even know if, like, if, you know, in the context of a relationship, like sometimes you know, two people can be in the same relationship and have completely different fucking perceptions
Oh, yeah, yeah,
of
yeah.
what is going on.
Right,
And you look at that and you're like, Jesus Christ, we're on different fucking planets here.
right.
And no, you're not. You're two people that, you know, potentially live in the same house and share the same last name, but have completely different perceptions of the way things are.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at that, and that's a very mundane explanation. That's like day-to-day stuff, right?
Right,
But look at how, you know, how our we could occupy the same space but could live in completely different worlds.
right.
I think that it's not hard to imagine that there's some kind of, there might be some multi-dimensional chicanery going on where maybe we are picking up different things from different, um you know, different layers of reality or something.
Now, the
And
human brain is absolutely amazing. There's a reason why we have not been able to create a good enough AI because we just can't replicate the brain. We're
right,
just not there yet. And so, I mean, you're absolutely right. You can be, living in the same household with somebody that you've known for the past 15 years, but you both have totally different perceptions of what has been going on in the last 15 years. And and it is really amazing that we can do that. But I mean, then again, maybe that could also be on the flip side an argument for the Mandela effect. Maybe you have those different realities because you were in a different reality for a portion of it.
right. I
It
mean,
just
look at 2020 and the way that, like, I want to see, you know, and one have I want to see like three different history books written on this year alone by three different
oh,
people.
that'd be interesting, yeah. And yeah,
Yeah,
you know what? Because everybody I know talks about how shitty this year's been and whatever, and I feel like I need to like jump on like the shit show bandwagon, but like I haven't really had that bad of a year. I mean, it started off really bad for me. Fuck, it was before the coronavirus when my life was shitty. It's been all uphill since then. It's been great.
yeah. I think I'm kind of, this year hasn't been terrible for me, but I think that I just feel like the bottom hasn't dropped out yet. Like we'll see what happens
That's fair.
in the next 2-3 months. I feel like we're entering the end game, but this movie ain't over yet. So we'll see.
That's
You know,
that's very fair. You're right. I shouldn't get too excited yet.
well,
Maybe I'm gonna get it all at once next month.
I mean, we'll see if there's a peaceful transition of power. We'll see if
Ooh.
what happens with the pandemic in the during the winter months. You know, I mean, we're like very close to being in a state of emergency here in Chicago right now. Like
Oh, I think so. We still are. Our governor just declared that he is. Well, no, he's not that he's extending it. Maybe he's placing a new one. Maybe we weren't previously. And he just gave us a curfew today that starts
yeah,
Thursday. And I tweeted about this, but I'll share this little tidbit and then we'll get on to the topic. But I was at the grocery store yesterday, and in the produce section there was a very old man on a scooter, and he's got his mask, but he's got it around his chin. And this dude starts just fucking hacking up a lung. He is going to town coughing. Of course, he keeps his mask at his chin and doesn't even bother to cover his cough with anything, his elbow, his hand, anything. And he's just fucking coughing all over the place, riding around on a scooter in the fucking produce section, coughing all over everything. And it's like, really? So the governor just put out a curfew, a 10 o'clock curfew. Shit, our stuff's not even open at 10 o'clock anymore at this point. Like, the curfew's not going to do anything. The problem is that we have people like old man on the scooter who are going around coughing on fucking everything. And, you know, it's just, I'm just, you know, I guess, yeah, yesterday having that happen, I was just so fucking done. I was like, I gotta leave. I fucking noped right out of the grocery store. I was like, no, I'm going home. I'm gonna go sanitize completely. And I did. And you know, so hopefully I don't get the COVID. If I do, it was old man at the Kroger. So
Yeah, I had a incident this week with a non-mask wearing fellow who I was unfortunately required to be in close proximity with on two occasions. And it wasn't that I didn't worry about myself personally, but what I think really upset me was just the, I guess, the arrogance of some people. You know what I mean? Like the first time I was around this person, they showed up to this. I'm speaking very vague, but showed up to this situation, and the person was not wearing a mask. Everyone else was wearing a mask, and you know, so I don't know why you would go anywhere nowadays and not wear a mask,
right,
but this person did this for whatever fucking reason. Okay, fine. So then a couple days later, they show up again, and they got the mask, but they're wearing it on their chin. And it was just one of those things where it's like, look, dude, I don't give a shit because I have my mask on and I put myself in way more danger just going to work every day than
right,
I am being around your stupid fucking ass right now. But it was clear to me, and this is something we kind of talked about before the show, that he was literally bending over backwards to try to make some kind of statement
right,
that he was not going to be bullied into wearing a mask because he thought that it infringed upon his rights or made him weaker as an individual. And that to me was the most outward manifestation of mankind's self-destructive nature. Like, you ever see some people that can't help but just fuck up? And you know what I mean? Like, they constantly get fucking fired from jobs and they fucking tank relationships and they're always going left when they should be going right. And
Jeez,
they just
now we're
can't
talking
help
about
but
my ex-husband here. I didn't know that was tonight's
well,
topic.
yeah, but they just can't help but fuck up. It's like it's in their fucking
Yeah,
nature. You can always count on them to do the exact wrong fucking thing.
right,
Well, here's the deal. Those are the people that are walking around now without any fucking masks on, yelling at people in Walmart. Like that is those people. That is those people 100%. They're the people that like have no concept of self-preservation. They have no amount of fucking social decorum or whatever that fucking word is. Like, they don't know how to behave. They don't know how to act. They don't know how to just, there's something to be said about sometimes just going along with the program and like not being a fucking, thorn in everybody's side and just let's all just, okay, let's move the ball forward here. Let's do what we
right.
need to do.
Let's let's be adults.
Let's
I'm just
wear,
here's my declaration. Okay, if I if I see you without a mask on, um, I'm going to assume that you have the smallest PP in the world. And if I see you without a mask on in a crowded public space without any type of reasonable explanation and not have a mask, you will never see my boobies. So put on
you
your
know
mask.
what? We need to record this and we need to put this on fucking the
Everywhere.
internet media. Yes. And that will fix this shit overnight.
You've got the smallest PP. I don't care if you're a guy or if you're a lady. If you're a lady, I'm gonna assume that you're a dead fish, and you also can't see my boobies. So that's my declaration. Damn it, wear your mask. It's worth it. Trust me. It's people don't want to die of the Rona. Yeah, respect that. And there you
Yeah,
go.
and I don't think it's that much. I don't think it's that much that's being asked, and the fact that
No.
it's people act like it is, that just shows their perception of things in general are just way fucking off. Like, if this is how you're going to combat
Right.
like like pedophilia or something, like, I don't know what you think you're fighting by like walking around with a mask on your chin when they're like, hey, look, you can't come in here without a mask on, and then you're like, oh yeah, really? Okay, I'm gonna wear it on my fucking chin. And then you're just like, dude, like, you're a fucking dork.
They
Like,
fucking walk out of the store yelling, "Save our children!" while they fucking kill all their grandmas and grandpas.
yeah.
Okay, well, we'll get into that. We will. You guys voted actually. You guys wanted to hear us do a QAnon episode, and that will be coming in the near future. Not next week's future, but in the near future. And I'm a little nervous about it. But I'm definitely, I mean, if you guys want to hear it, we'll pull up the information and we'll give it to you. And this is, unfortunately, the pandemic is part of it. So we'll, definitely have more hot takes on that. So
Cool.
anyway, so let's get into today's fun topic here. I'm pretty excited about it. Actually, I've worked really hard on it. So,
Awesome.
Pat, what do you know about Wright Penn Air Force Base?
Uh, I know that it is where they think that they brought the recovered bodies from Roswell. Number one. I know that it is in your general vicinity. Have we ever talked about Guided by Voices? Are you a Guided by Voices fan?
I don't know what that is.
Oh my god!
What is it? Should I
Oh
know
my
what it
god!
is?
Oh my god! Everybody, be cool. All right.
Okay.
Everyone, just be cool. All right.
I'm so confused right now. No, I don't know what that is.
They're a band. It doesn't matter.
Oh, okay.
But they're a band from Dayton, Ohio that has a lot of I mean, not necessarily in their lyrics, but and just kind of like they're like graphic design, like album covers and album titles and stuff. They have an album called Hardcore UFOs, and
Oh, okay.
yeah, they just being from Dayton, they use the UFO stuff in their kind of like iconography a lot, and
Right.
like because of the Air Force Base there and stuff. So
Sure.
yeah, I mean, it's always been on my radar. I mean, you're constantly telling me new things about it that I have never heard of. So as much as I thought I knew, it pales in comparison to the gold mine that you got between your ears on this place.
Sure. Well, that makes sense. Well, I'm always curious about what other people, from other states think about it or know about it because, I'm here and it's, 10 minutes up the road. And, I used to, when I first got my license, I used to park, there's like an abandoned parking lot right across the street from like the main gate to where the museum is. And I used to park out there and sit and watch for activity in UFOs all night and get high. And so, so of course, I'm going to know more than what somebody in Florida is going to know about it. I would assume, because we've got our own little things. But yeah, so we'll start there. I guess we'll just start at the beginning. So Wright Penn Air Force Base used to be known as, well, it started off as Huffman Field, and it was where the Wright brothers were testing their planes and eventually, succeeded and took flight. And I believe they're buried here in one of our we got a big cemetery, and I think they're there, I'm pretty sure. And then, so it was kind of I mean, literally the home of aviation. So the military ends up buying it. It becomes a historical landmark. They had rebranded it as Wright Field. And then, eventually it's become what it's known as now, Wright Patterson Air Force Base. It's huge. I did not look up how huge. I probably should have done that, but it's about the size of a small town. It really is. Um, it starts off in one town, and then like the other side of it is in a totally different town. So it's massive, but families live there, the civilians and stuff, people can live there, and there's all kinds of stuff going on. So in 1947, the Roswell crash happened, and that happened out in New Mexico. And what people were saying was that witnesses that saw the crash debris claimed that they saw these weird metals and things, and they also saw 3 bodies that were everything was hauled off and taken somewhere else. The government officials said that everything was taken to Texas. But a couple of people have come out to say otherwise. Oliver Henderson, who was a pilot for the Air Force at the time, said that he personally flew the debris from Roswell to Dayton, Ohio, and that's where it's been kept. And he mentioned debris and bodies, so he said both. And then just I can't even get into everybody who claims that they worked there and they saw this happen with their own eyes. But it's pretty well known that that's where they went. So they say that they took these bodies and took these debris and put them into an unmarked hangar, which everybody refers to as Hangar 18, because there was
Right.
no Hangar 18 supposedly, and that's where it's remained forever. So that's basically the Roswell story in a nutshell, which we'll go further into detail about it in a moment. A couple of other things to mention are that it's supposedly very haunted, as well as one of the houses there on the base is also very haunted. There's actually an episode of Ghost Hunters about it, about how, crazy haunted this place is. Here's the thing. I live here and I've never been to the Air Force Base. You can go to the museum for free. I've never been to it. I'm not sure why. So, I don't know. I can't tell you if I have any ghostly encounters there or felt anything or anything because I've never been there. Maybe I will, but COVID and all, I don't really go to too many places. So, that's one legend. Another one is that, which is kind of more of a fun one, is that they house old original reels of really famous movies there. So I would think, super classics like Gone with the Wind and stuff like that's probably the original reels are probably there. But I'm not sure exactly what, but that's what they say. Now they do have a theater that they play movies at the museum, so that would make sense. If they did have original film reels. One thing that they had on display for a very long time were the space pancakes. I'm so excited to talk about the space.
Right.
So, long time ago.
For the longest time, I've had notes. I've had notes for like upcoming show topics, and space pancakes has always been on there.
I'm like, what is this?
Right. So I'm glad that we could finally scratch this off the list now. So without further ado, please discuss the space pancakes.
So, okay. So, let me pull it up. Hold on. So, space pancakes is a really interesting thing. It's not weed pancakes like everybody thinks it is. So this guy was sitting home one day. Everybody thinks it is. I can't remember the guy's fucking name. I'll be honest. I got too involved with other stuff that I didn't really get to research it, but I know the story pretty much by heart. So this dude's at home one day, and he's, it's morning, and he says that he's on his farm, and these aliens come down, and they ask him for some water. So he gives them water, and in return, they took him on his spaceship, which I don't think they flew anywhere. They just took him on board, and they were making something on like a big, spacey griddle, and which he said looked like pancakes, and they made him some and they gave them to him, and he went back into his house and he sat down to eat one, but he didn't like how it tasted, so he didn't continue to eat it. The space pancakes were turned over. They're at Wright Pat, and and they've tested them, and they seem like pretty much regular pancake ingredients, except for there's no salt, and that might be why they didn't taste very good. We don't really know why they didn't taste very good, but apparently aliens are bad pancake chefs. So that's the space pancakes. Now the space pancakes were actually on display at the museum. You could see them for a very long time. They've since taken them out because they kind of take things out, and they have like exhibits and things like that. So they've taken them out, but they're there. So that is the big thing, and the big, there's a reason why they had the space pancakes at Wright Pat. Wright Pat is the home of Project Blue Book. It's where they've conducted all of this, all of these UFO studies and these encounters and things like that. And that's not a conspiracy. Like that's not, hearsay. That's not word of mouth. That's where it took place. And, so it is very interesting to have these claims as well, because these claims, these, Roswell claims and all that, those are happening before Project Blue Book was declassified. So, it would make sense. Getting back to, kind of the, the history of it. Let me pull up my notes here. Gosh, there's so much. Which I can't even cover everything. So what a lot of people theorize is that Wright Pat is actually really more Area 51 than Area 51 is, and that they just kind of use Area 51 and let people think that that's where all the crazy shit is at to take the heat off of Wright Pat.
Okay.
And it's possible. That's a possibility. I could see that. Um, here locally we have a lot of stories and things like that, and which I have a couple that I will be sharing soon. But I'm excited about it because I don't know, I feel like I got a lot. But yeah, I mean, we know things that other people don't know. Pat, one of the first conversations I ever had with you was about the fact that they shut down one day. They went on lockdown because there was supposedly a shooter at the Air Force Base.
Right.
And, everybody was freaking out. It was all over the news, and everybody's like, what's going on? What's happening? And then they just kind of came on the news later and they were like, oh, never mind. It was nothing.
Wasn't there a shooting there last year, though?
There was a shooting here. Was it last year? I think it was 2018. Maybe it was last year. Fuck, man. 2020's been.
Yeah, 9 people were killed or something.
Yeah. We had the Oregon shooter. So yeah, initially, we had this mass shooting down in the Oregon district, and it's like a party strip. It's just a bunch of bars, and everybody goes down there to party. And this guy comes down there and shoots and kills a bunch of people. Not too many people, like you said. I think it was 9. I think you're right. But he killed a couple people, and the police took him out. They acted really fast, actually. I mean, it was all over within like 2 minutes. And that was that. So a couple days before that happened, there were ads posted about crisis actors. Like it was a casting call for people to pretend to be in some type of crisis or whatever. And but it was exactly that. I mean, it even said for crisis actors. And it could have been anything. It could have been nothing, but you could get right on to Craigslist and you could see that it was posted a couple of days before the shooting took place. I was thinking about the lockdown one night at Wright Pat recently, and I went back to check the dates, and it appeared that the dates were like within days of each other, that there was this Wright Pat lockdown, then there was this shooting that actually happened for real. And come to find out, I was mistaken. The Wright Pat lockdown happened in 2017. Initially I thought that they were connected, but I don't think they are, so I'm not sure. But I still thought I still think that the Wright Pat lockdown was so strange because, again, it was big news. When your Air Force Base is under attack in your local town, that's a big problem. So,
yeah.
So we, so that was interesting. But, again, nobody really heard about that. Nobody really, hell, a lot of people don't even remember it. When I try to talk to them about it, they're like, I don't remember that happening. And it's like, how do you not remember that? It was all over the news. It was everywhere. It was a big deal. They didn't remember it. So anyway, going back to Wright Pat as a whole, another big rumor. So where Wright Pat is, the Air Force Base, there's a big college that's kind of around its general area. It's called Wright State University. Okay. And they have at Wright State, they have these underground tunnels that they can use to, get from one building to another. Usually they use them in the winter or, when it's really hot, whatever, for weather. And so that kind of sparked off a rumor because the buildings that Wright State is housed in used to be part of the Air Force Base. And
so yeah. I was hoping you were going to bring this up. Can I talk about this for a second?
Please, yeah.
So that actually is the same. We have a similar situation here in Chicago with Midway Airport.
Okay.
Midway Airport was, it's been active since World War II, and not too far from there is what is now known as the Ford City Mall. And I was an employee of the Ford City Mall doing similar to what I do now, but I did it when I was younger at the mall.
Okay.
And there was miles and miles of tunnels underneath that mall because when that mall was built, it was an old Ford auto plant that was converted into an airplane factory in World War II. And what they would do is they would transport the completed airplanes, they would taxi them underground through the tunnels and then they would come up at Midway Airport and then fly off and go do whatever, right? And the rumors I heard about, and this is verifiable. This is not fucking urban legend or anything
Sure.
like that. These tunnels exist. I've been in them. We used to ride bikes up. Well, I don't know how to ride a bike, but you could ride bikes up and down them, and different engineers would do that to take readings and stuff like
You
that.
don't know how to ride a bike?
And oh my god, no, I do not.
I don't know how to ride a bike either.
No. Oh my god. Okay, cool. Neither does my wife. That was one of the first things we bonded over when we were writing each other's emails on Match.com, was the fact that neither one of us knew how to ride a bike. So, and now my son doesn't know how to ride a bike, so the cycle continues. But anyway, yeah. So there was these tunnels that existed underneath the Ford City Mall that were used to transport airplanes. There's two things that I heard that I know to be true. The two rumors that I heard were this: number one, there are still massive underground chambers with stuff that's not being used, equipment, possible fuselages, all kinds of shit still underneath there that the guys would not let me see because my time there was brief, and only the engineers that worked there and that were going to be there for a while got to see that stuff. But there was stuff from
Okay.
World War II that was underneath there that was under lock and key. That was number one. Number two was that the tunnels went even further in the other direction into an area that I lived in, part of the city that I lived in, because not only did they want to be able to move the pieces of equipment from the factory to the airport, but in case things were ever being attacked, they wanted to be able to move personnel underground to where they lived, and where they lived was about 5 miles away because they wanted to try to insulate the two,
I've heard
so
stuff
that
like that. Yeah.
if there ever was a bombing run, okay, maybe you might get the factory and you might get some of the people there, but the rest of the workers that weren't on the shift would be at home, and you wouldn't lose everything at once, basically.
Right.
Now, I never saw any evidence of that, but that's what I heard as well. So when I saw this story online about the college and being tunnels going to the airport, that's 100% true. What I have zero doubt in my mind about that.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
there's a video and pictures and of people walking around in the tunnels. There's discrepancy though as to whether or not they were there because of the base so what they're saying is that what the claim is that the tunnels were there for electrical reasons, that there was for maintenance work on the buildings and stuff like that. Well, so it's like, okay, that's all good and well, but are you saying that these buildings didn't have electricity when you first put them in and moved
right?
them?
No, you don't need to run utilities underground. That's bullshit.
Right. It's
I
weird.
mean, think about your house. Think about your house. Think about everything else. Think about
Right. I live in an apartment. I don't have a basement, so and I have
yeah,
electricity.
yeah. No, you could use telephone poles like every fucking you-
Yeah,
so
right. And so, so it's like, there's rumors that there is basically a whole nother base underground, and
sure.
they haven't admitted to that. They, in fact, they've denied that that's the case. And what they say is that the underground bases is actually where everything is. But more, more than that. So we'll go back to Roswell. So them having these underground bases, this is why they sent them to Wright Pat, is because they had access to underground. And what they were doing with these alien bodies was putting them into, cryogenic labs so that they could, study them further.
Sure.
And so, right. So it made sense. If you put things underground, it's already cooler down there. It makes sense. That's what
Well,
they say.
and this theory was popularized by Megadeth on their 9th studio album, The World Needs a Hero, which contains the track Return to Hangar 18. And on the cover, it shows life forms escaping from cryogenic tubes.
I wasn't even aware of. I'm sure.
You,
I guess there's a whole ass movie called Hangar 18, and I didn't even know it was a thing. So
I knew, yeah, I didn't know either. But I knew. Let's see who's in it. Robert Vaughn's in it. I knew. I mean, obviously, I knew about Megadeth, but Yeah, I didn't know they did a sequel to it. I always think that's funny when like bands write sequels to songs. Like it's so weird, such a weird concept. Like I remember John Cougar Mellencamp, you know that story like Jack and Diane. He did like a follow up, like where like they get divorced and shit. And it's like, why do you gotta do that? You know,
Right.
like just let Jack and Diane be Jack and Diane. But yeah,
It was good the way it was. Leave it alone.
yeah, Megadeth wrote a song called Hangar 18, which is very, very popular. It was nominated for a Grammy. But then they wrote a sequel song in 2001 called Return to Hangar, which actually gets into the mythology
Well, that's pretty
about
cool.
the life forms escaping and coming back to life and killing those inside the building. So, yeah, you know, the underground base thing, like that's one of the other topics on our list of potential show ideas was the Dulce, New Mexico base. Are you familiar with that at all?
No,
Basically it's the same. I mean,
I've
it's
never heard of
very common, you know. Yeah, where like you go down certain levels, and on some levels you have the humans experimenting on aliens, and then you go down another couple levels and it's aliens experimenting on humans, and then you go down to like the bottom level, and you know it's called dreamland, and no one's allowed to know what happens in that final level of the base, and there's portal technology and all
Oh,
kinds
you
of
got a
shit.
Stargate down there?
I don't know. They got Saddam's Stargate.
Well,
No, I mean
yeah.
that's where the magnetic train platform is that you know connects the United States with this underground magnetic train that flies around and
Really?
shuttles children and abductees
Oh,
from facility to facility.
oh,
No, I'm
that's
just
not
making.
real. I'm like,
I'm
real?
just. Dude, who knows if any of this shit's real? Why is it less real? Because I just improved it right now. I don't know. You know.
Uh-oh, Cat just created a new.
Yes, and you know, but no. I mean, there's the underground train thing. Like that's something that's been talked about before.
Okay.
But really, yeah. I mean, you can Google that. But yeah, I believe it. You know,
Well, right. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And here's the thing: is that it isn't. It's it's a military base. Okay, they're not supposed to tell us all of their secrets. I understand that.
and it's in the center of the United States too. It's a very key location.
It is.
Uh,
It's a really good spot for
right.
what they're doing. And it's or whatever, it's just a very good it's a very good piece of land to have. So, I mean, that's fine. If they have an underground base, fine. That's great. That's wonderful. But if they have aliens and they have actual aliens, they need to tell us this. Um Lots of claims have been made about it. I can tell you what we kind of know what the facts are. As far as we know the facts. So, one thing that is for certain, and I have made the mistake, is that for a long time they had a bunch of land that they didn't do anything with, but they owned, and they were building on it. And I was down there because actually my where I filmed my show for my horror host show, my spook house, is, I mean, right around the corner from it. And so I have to drive, and I pretty much have to drive like along the base. And for a long time, like GPS it wasn't updated that you couldn't drive through certain areas because the building on it. And
That's
so,
interesting.
yes, so you would frequently accidentally enter base territory, and they will come out with guns pointed at you and, tell you to leave. There was
Right.
like a story about a family that came from Columbus, Ohio, which is about an hour and a half away. And, they came to go to the museum. They took a wrong turn and they ended up with, guns at their head, and they're handcuffed and, for questioning. And I mean, it's very secretive. You cannot just roll onto the base, and, they will shoot you. I don't think they've shot anybody yet. I don't think they've.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to be argumentative, but like they're not gonna fuck. I guarantee you, yeah, they'll come out with guns drawn and stuff, but like they know the difference between these people are lost and like these guys are fucking Russian spies or some shit.
Well, they do,
You know what
but
I mean?
if you go rushing that perimeter, they're going to shoot you.
Oh yeah,
They're definitely going to at that point. Of course. So I mean, there is, there's kind of a danger there because you're, terrified. I don't know if you've ever had a gun pointed at you before, but it's scary.
what today?
Not today. Yeah. Well, you just never know in Chicago. I mean,
Hey, what did you think about that Area 51 Storm Area 51 thing Do you remember that? Like it was supposed to
Yeah,
be.
I kind of do. So the unfortunate thing about it was like during that whole weekend, the same weekend that they did that, I was at the Mothman Festival, and the
Oh,
Airbnb
okay.
we were staying at, we had no service, so like we had no idea what was going on. We kind of talked about it, and then it was like, because it was the first time we had really worked on the documentary, and we were like, we finally got into town. We got to Point Pleasant. We had service on the phones, and everybody was like, "Oh, I think one person was arrested, or maybe somebody died." I don't really remember, but that was really it. We were just kind of all like, all right." I
I
mean,
don't think anyone died. I was watching on Snapchat using like the Snapchat map thing,
yeah,
and it was just. I think it was like just a bunch of goofballs, and
was
the guards seemed to realize that everyone was goofballs, and nobody got too close. No one provoked them. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And
Oh yeah, because if you
I'm
will, they will also shoot you. They
yeah, but
will
I'm
shoot you
sure
for
they
real, not even just like you're partially a threat. If you start driving up to their land, they will fucking shoot you if you get too close.
yeah.
Not even to the actual Area 51. Like you don't even have to make it there for them to fucking load you up. Like they they don't walk around there. So it's kind of amazing because the Air Force Base here is right in the middle of a town. I mean, it's not like it's not the middle of nowhere like you would think it is. It's in the middle of a town. There's big beautiful plains outside. You can see them. It's not like it's just in BFE in the desert, like Area
Right.
51 is. So it is kind of amazing that if they are hiding all this stuff, they're really hiding it in plain sight. Now, again, a lot of the area around it was kind of desolate and it was theirs, but they've started to build onto it. I think I've told this story before. Recently, I was driving and I taken a new way up to the shop to go film, and I'd never been that way before, and I started getting really nervous because I started seeing a lot of shit that I was very unfamiliar with. They look like what I, would assume is a Death Star. I don't know what the hell it was, but it looked like a Death Star. And
What?
yeah,
What do you mean?
and I
What are you
can't
talking about?
find, I don't know. It was this big ball of something. It was huge. I've never seen anything like it before, except for on
This
Star
was
Wars.
in the sky.
No, 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 no. This was like it was like on the ground. I mean, it was all like, it was like grounded somehow. There was like all kinds of satellites, all kinds of crazy, just shit I've never seen before in that area. And I cannot seem to find the route anymore. I don't know how it took me via GPS, but I couldn't find it again. And I've been trying to find it again because I would love to take video of it and show everybody because it's fucking wild. I've never seen it, anything like it. But no, it was
So,
not in the sky. It was on the ground. It was smaller
all
than
right.
a Death
So,
Star.
well, yeah, because a Death Star is the size of a moon. I mean,
Right. No,
they
ex
clearly confuse a moon with a space station in Star Wars.
it was like a big metal
Um,
ball.
okay, so just walk me through this. So
Okay.
you're you're driving through a residential area. You're trying to go from point A to point B.
Yes.
MapQuest is taking you some funky route, and you're driving through a residential area adjacent to the Wright Pat
Well,
Air Force Base.
really, at that point, it wasn't a residential area. There is like some, a little bit of country roads between like here and there, and I take the back roads, so that's
Okay,
the way I take it.
Midway Airport's very much like that in Chicago. I used to, one of my apartments was 2 blocks down from it, and like, yes, it was kind of around an industrial area. Everything gets a little mixed mashed over there, but
Right.
you're never that far away from civilization.
Well,
You're not really,
yeah,
no.
basically how the base is. Yeah.
Okay, so you're cruising around and you're going down one of these like more rural than developed roads, and there's just like this metal ball in the middle of the road.
So it's like a fenced in area. Okay, it's got this huge ass fence that you can't, and it's barbed wired. You can't climb it. You can't get into it.
Okay,
And and it's like it's all on my driver's side. And there's like satellites, there's other weird big metal structures I don't know the name of, and there's a big
and all
giant
this stuff is grounded, but it's
everything's
like
on the
there.
ground. Yes. And,
Okay.
and there's like a big metal ball thing. And I'm like, what the
Oh,
fuck is
okay.
that? And this huge satellite. And I'm like, wait. And then other like little satellites and a bunch of stuff. And but so I have a pretty bad driving anxiety as it is. That's why I take back roads to get to where I need to go. And so I'm already freaking out because I'm in an unfamiliar area. I'm
Sure.
freaking out because my GPS is trying to take me on the base, and I've been there and done that. I'm not doing that, especially in fucking Death Star territory. And and so I had to end up kind of trying to go around the base and figuring out. So, I ended up taking a weird, but it was so strange because like you're on this main road, and it was like a main road because there were other cars for a long time, and then there wasn't. And it just stops. The road itself just dead ends right into the base. And I'm like, oh, I need to go away somewhere. so so I got out of there. Yeah, and I'm living to tell about it. So hopefully.
Right. Now, like growing up, I know that like you've moved around a little bit, but like did you have friends that kind of grew up in that area right around the base? Like, did they experience any kind of high strangeness, or like, is there what we had talked about? One of the things you sent me, I'm not trying to, jump around too much on you, but
That's okay.
there is some kind of like environmental contamination in that area as
Yeah.
well.
Right.
Which you would expect if there's not even if there's anything hinky going on, just
Right.
like it's a military
It's
base
right.
and
And that's
shit.
typical. I mean, and if you looked at that, the link that I had sent you, there's all these different military bases. So it's not just,
Right, yeah.
um,
It was definitely not just them, although they did have a significantly higher number of it was like yeah, or it was like yeah, there was other bases that had like, environmental issues, but Wright Pat had a significant amount.
and that was the first time I've ever heard about that. I had never heard that that any of the area was contaminated at all or anything like that. So I really wasn't aware that that was a thing. So, growing up, having friends that had anything, not yes and no. So I didn't get to Dayton until I was about 13, and even
Okay.
then I didn't really know anybody until I was like 18 in the area.
Uh,
So, I had a weird life, and eventually we'll talk about that one day too. But, I've always heard of other people that, have had experiences, and pretty much everybody, I don't think I've ever talked to a single person that doesn't have something weird to say about the base. If you ask anybody about it, that's just the way it is.
right. Well, that's kind of like where I brought up Guided by Voices. Uh
Yeah. So, I mean,
and because
oh,
they like I said, they were like a band from they were a band from the area that brought UFOs a lot into their kind of their shit. Their box set was called Hardcore UFOs. Um there's lots of other stuff like
yeah,
t-shirts and
so
stuff
we were
that I've
talking
seen
about
people wear.
so I was getting into basically what we know, what's
Right,
pretty
right.
much, what we can almost kind of confirm from the facts. So I was talking about the arm gates, so we've got that. And then we talked about Oliver Henderson, who says that he flew the debris from Roswell to Wright Pat. Um, this guy who was I believe he was a general there. I don't think they ever said his rank, but his name was Marion Magruder. They called him Black Mac. But he had always told his kids that he saw a living alien at Wright Field in 1947. He'd always maintained that story. Specifically, he was quoted saying, "It was it was a shameful thing that the military destroyed this creature by conducting tests on it." So that's another like kind of debated thing about the aliens is that some people say that they arrived dead. Some people say that one was alive and that they tried to save it and that they couldn't. Some say
Right.
that they were alive, but they started experimenting on them and killed them, or they were alive and they couldn't live on our planet, so they ended up dying. They were very sick.
Yeah.
That's kind of up for debate. But
I
Senator
always heard they didn't know.
oh, go ahead.
No, you go, please.
Well, I was saying, Senator of Arizona was really into all of this. Senator Barry Goldwater, and he's actually been kind of one of the loudest voices. He was actually the a presidential candidate back in 1964, and he went to the base and he asked one of the generals there. His name was Curtis LeMay. He asked if he could have access to the secret UFO room, and LeMay very sternly looked at him and said, "Not only can't you get into it, but don't you ever mention it to me again." And that was that.
Wow.
And that was that. So it's like, why are there such strong reactions if it's not something? It just seems really, suspicious. But
Right.
there's a lot of people that say, a lot of civilians around the area. I know a couple people that have worked there, that do work there. You know, so a lot of areas they're not allowed to take their phones into. Um, but they all joke about it. They all joke on, you know, they will freely joke about the aliens and stuff while they're there at work. And it's kind of like a Freudian slip. Like it's their way of kind of releasing that tension because they know. But if they joke about it, then nobody will take it seriously. And so it's like, you know, maybe. But I have some stories. I would like
Okay.
to share some of the stories from, and these are all local people. And, you know, I wanted to kind of get that and let it speak for itself, basically. Now, these are all alleged. You know, I'll kind of start off with the less serious ones and work my way up. But you know, take them with what you will. So I had one person that said that, you know, quote, I worked in Fairborn doing repo, and let me tell you, some strange shit goes on at the base at night. I asked this person to clarify, and they would not. So I don't know what that means.
So
Another yes.
back that up real quick. So they work where doing
They work
repo
in
is like repo.
Fairborn doing repo. So some of the bases in Fairborn, Ohio.
Okay, gotcha. All right, cool.
So right, so like I said, it's kind of between a bunch of towns. Like it's not just. I mean, everybody says Dayton, but it's actually located on multiple towns. Because
Okay,
so they used to work repo and they worked at night. And you know again, and this is somebody that I know, you know, personally. This guy said, I just built a 3-story building in one of the old hangars there a month ago. It was built to withstand a damn nuke, I swear. The reinforcement on that structure is insane. We weren't allowed to take pictures or anything. Had to check our phones in at the job trailer every morning. It felt very top secret. And that was,
okay.
you know, recently. And which, okay, it's a military base. I could see them having some, you know, nuke withstanding things. This is I'll get to that soon. This is my best friend Will. I'm allowed to name him. He already knows too much. If I'm going down, he'll probably go down too. So he tells me the story. Will says he's at Eastwood Lake, which is right across the street from the base. And he goes there a lot. So he said, I'm at Eastwood Lake, right across from the base. I look out over the water and see ripples from one central location moving outward from about the middle of the lake. There's nothing but fog in the air. I realize that those ripples have to be made from something forcing the water out, being the size and consistency that they were. I figured it was part of some sort of sonic test or some sort of hovering craft making the phenomena. So he saw unexplained waves in the water at this lake by himself. Right across the street from the base. Now he did say, yeah, nothing but fog in the air. That's important. That's really important. So I had another person contact me, and this is when the John Keel thing happened for me. And he says that his grandfather worked on the base. He didn't disclose the rank or anything, and he's got some very interesting stories to tell. So I'm excited. I'm excited to tell him. So let me take a drink here, wet my whistle a little bit. Getting into the juicy stuff. So I'm excited about it. Oh my gosh. So, and again, this is another personal acquaintance. I know this person, and I can vouch that they've never had a reason to, you know, be a liar. So, but who knows?
Gotcha.
So he says, my grandpa would tell me stories of Bob, who lived under this hangar off the base. He said Bob wasn't from Earth. He was there to give information and was willingly staying under this hangar. I always thought it was just him messing with us until we started getting older and he started telling us that we can't tell anyone anything he tells us. It just made me feel like he was just messing with us more until I started getting even older and he started swearing up and down he never said any of that stuff. Yet my sister remembers the stories just as vividly as I do. I've also driven past the hangar before really early in the morning and there were armed guards at the door, which was strange because this hangar was typically empty and nothing happened there. When I lived across the street from the base, there would occasionally be this insanely thick fog just roll out of nowhere. It was like they were trying to visually stop anyone from observing what was happening. He said his grandpa was there probably in the late 60s. So he said, probably at basically the end of Project Blue Book. And he also said, his grandpa always referred to him as Bob. I'm thinking it was an acronym of some sorts. He would tell us how he wanted to help us, that he helped us with planes and stuff like that. I remember him telling us that he couldn't leave either, that he was sick or weak. He wouldn't even talk about him when anyone else was around. He said Bob was really frail. I believed he described him as tall but really skinny. He said he couldn't leave for his safety. So that's interesting. So while this is happening, while he's telling me about this Bob creature, I'm kind of making jokes and I'm like, well, come on, Bob, really. And it gives me this description and I don't know, get a hankering to get on Google and I type in Skinny Bob. And sure enough, if you type in Skinny Bob, this video pops up. And in May of 2011, this video surfaced on the internet of what is supposedly aliens, and it's very, I mean, definitely look it up, Google it yourselves and watch it. It looks, it looks too good to be true. It really does. But what you see are basically the regular, the gray aliens that you see everywhere. There's like shots of them dead on the ground. There's like shots of them moving. There's shots of like groups.
Oh, I don't want to look at this before bed. Why the fuck did you?
There's like groups of them walking around.
Listen, if you're gonna look at this,
don't
do it at 10 o'clock at night on a fucking Tuesday.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Yeah, and so in this video, and I've never heard of this. Maybe I was out of the game for a long time. Now, a lot of people on the internet, think a lot of people think it's a hoax because it looks so goddamn good. It really does. It's so clear. There's like images of these things and they're blinking and it just looks so good. But nobody since it came out in 2011 has ever claimed the footage. They thought that maybe it was some type of promotion for some type of show, but nobody's ever claimed it. So if it is fake, that's a damn good fake and an expensive one at that. It looks great. So I send this to the guy and he's freaking out because he looks at it and he's like, that is exactly what was described to me by my grandfather. That's exactly what it was. And he's just like, I can't, again, when you know, and that's what he says. I can't tell you how I know, but I know that that's what it was. And I thought that was, I don't know, that was something. That's a big deal. What do you think of are you still watching it? It's kind
no.
What did
I have a thing that I do with my friends where we text each other screen grabs from we'll do it randomly and we'll do it late at night. But we text each other screen grabs from Fire in the Sky. So like you catch people like right before they go to bed and you send them that picture of like the dude with the saran wrap on him. You know what I'm talking about?
Okay, yes.
And you're just like, good night.
Is that what you're doing?
It totally ruins. Yeah.
But that's what the internet has nicknamed the one, there's one alien in the video that you get all these close-up shots of and all this fun stuff and supposedly they've called him Skinny Bob. And so I think that was very, I don't know. What do you think of it? I know you watched some of it. What did you think of it?
I think that it's always, it looks too real. I mean, which
it does, doesn't it?
It looks like that. So, everyone has an idea what grays look like.
Uh-huh.
And, but if you were to, but you got to remember that those are all kind of like derivatives. They're all like cover versions of the same song, right?
Basically, yeah, slightly.
And then, right, exactly. Because you're never seeing the real thing, right? You're seeing like this is, and it's always a special effects crew or it's always someone doing a drawing. So it's always through someone else's lens. And even if they're not taking liberties, even if they're being completely honest, it's still a different hand kind of, bringing this thing to life. And then if you were to see it and be like, well, this is a real photograph of what these things really look like, you would just be like, yeah, that's it. It looks, you know what I mean? Like that looks like what it would really
it looks
like.
as real can get. They're not blurry images. They're not, that's the crazy thing about it. It's not, which, they could be fake. Maybe you guys know something that I don't. Maybe you guys know that these have since been proven fake. But from what I could find, And I dug on it a little bit. Can't find anywhere where it's been proven to be a hoax, just that it's widely believed that it is because it's so good. And that's it really. I mean, I don't know, but it was pretty wild. It was fun. It's fun because it's not often that I get to see new media that I haven't seen. So it was really fun for me. Now there are a lot of like alleged photographs from these aliens at Wright Pat and stuff all over the internet. You can find them everywhere. Um, but to my knowledge, every single one that I've ever looked at has always been kind of like, I don't know about that. There was a guy
Yeah.
that came out, and I kept trying to find. I read a document about uh some military somewhere in the US having an alien and how it lived for several weeks until it got very sick and it died. And it was very long, but gosh, I read it when I was in high school. And it was associated with there's this video of supposedly an alien interview, and this guy Victor comes out and says that, he worked I think he says it happened at Area 51. He worked at Area 51 and he was able to snag this video and he's distributing it. He's never publicly come out and shown his face, or his voice or any other indicators of who he is. But the interview itself looks pretty good. It does look pretty good. So, I mean, it's an alien on screen. It's in like some type of really, really dark interrogation room. You see it kind of moving around a bit, and then it starts maybe coughing or wheezing or it's struggling. And then a group of, quote unquote scientists runs in and they start kind of trying to assess it, and then the video ends. It's pretty short. A lot of people think that that's a puppet, and it could be, especially because of the
Yeah.
dark room and the way it works. But that was the first thing I thought of whenever, with this kid's story, my friend's story, and mixed with the Skinny Bob thing. That was kind of my first thought because he kept maintaining that this thing was very sick, and for whatever reason it had to stay here, and maybe it had to stay underground because it couldn't come up because it was in a controlled environment. I don't know. Um,
I I had heard that, and this is coming from "Behold the Pale Horse," which was a book that I read. It was a conspiracy theorist Bible for a very long time, by William Cooper Smith, who was a naval intelligence in Vietnam and supposedly got his hands on a lot of different crazy documents and released them all. And this was an era before the internet. It was when there was basically coast to coast AM, and there was ham radio, which is like we're really going back now. This is like the 80s and
some
early
people still
90s.
fuck with that ham radio though.
I want to. If I had disposable income, I would.
One of
I
my good
don't.
friends does. He's really into it.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's definitely cool. I wish
Actually,
I
one of
could,
the
but
boyfriends kind of does too. He's all about his little walkie-talkie he carries, his little radio that he carries all the time. So,
oh, I will fully admit I drive around with a CB radio in my car. 100%. Yes. I bust it out on road trips and it annoys the shit out of my family, but I love it. Yeah. So anyway, William Cooper Smith, Behold the Pale Horse, and he has his take on the whole Roswell thing was that there were living beings recovered, and they didn't know how to feed them.
right.
And it was something with like photosynthesis or something where
I've
like
heard that.
basically like they needed like sunlight or like plants or something, and they couldn't make it work, and these things just eventually died on their
They
own.
died, right? And they died.
And that was kind of that, but they got what they could before they did. But what was interesting about that book is that book alleges a lot of different crazy shit, and I mean most of it's since been disproven, and it's all over the place. But it's always interesting to go back to this stuff that's kind of like pre millennia. You know what I mean? Like any of these UFO stories that are from like the 70s and 80s and even 90s, where it's still interplanetary travel. It's
Right.
still beings that are extraterrestrial, that are legitimate alien life forms from another planet that got into a spaceship that used propulsion to travel to this planet or stuff like that. It's always interesting when you hear that because, and it's something I know we've talked about before, but what we know of science now, it's less likely that if we're being visited by other intelligences, that's how they actually get here.
Right.
That
Right.
doesn't mean that these stories aren't true. I mean, these beings could have landed in the 1950s and said, "Look, if we start talking about string theory in the multiverse, you're not going to know what the fuck we're saying anyway." So yeah, we're from Venus, right?
Yeah,
Like for
true.
simplicity's sake, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? My name's Bob, and we're from Jupiter. All right, can you guys wrap your fucking heads around that?
You think Bob
Uh,
named himself Bob?
right?
Kind of
No, I don't
adorable.
know. Yeah. So, that I mean, there's always the possibility that that's what's going on, that it's
Yeah,
being dumbed down to us at
absolutely,
the
yeah.
time. But I mean,
That they are dumbing us down, yeah, exactly.
yeah, but I mean, if I think it's very hard in 2020 going on 2021 to sit here and tell me that like something flew here from another planet. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't believe that. You'd be like, "How the fuck?" Using.
Well, I have another person, and, this one's also very exciting. I have an informant, and I'm stoked about it. So
Okay.
I'm supposed to actually have a sit down. It was difficult because the way that I had to communicate with this person was via regular old Facebook Messenger, and and you don't really want to talk about this stuff too much on Facebook Messenger. And gosh, I might be getting him killed just saying that. But
Please don't be getting people killed.
I'm supposed to, I don't know. I'm supposed to meet the guy. And it's not, trust me, he's not crazy like the other guy. We're supposed to meet up and like have a real talk about this. And, but it's been very interesting. He's actually a fan of the show, so he'll listen to this. But, he went ahead and let me open up and ask questions, and he would answer to the best of his abilities. I can't give away his job. I can't give away his name. I can't give away any kind of identifying factors.
Okay.
So, take it with what you will. I'm just going off of, what he said. So in the beginning of the conversation, we were just kind of talking about, we're just kind of bullshitting about it. He's asking me what I wanted to know. I told him that, well, disclosure has been a big thing this year, and, it's just probably going to continue to happen. He says that, many files are being declassified over the next 5 years. So according to him, there's more to come. Great. That's wonderful.
Okay.
So, I go on, I ask him, I tell him, we expect them to be experimenting with, military stuff, weaponry and planes. And, there is secret stuff there. You'd be stupid to think that it's not. I mean, what are we paying them for if they're not actually doing their jobs? So what are we funding them for? So, but I said, are we working on space travel there at all? And then, he ended up giving me the insight into, not necessarily space travel, but they do kind of specialize in retro engineering, which was reverse engineering. So he's kind of confirming, that there's debris that, we have. He said that, let me see here, because I didn't put it in order. Where is it at? Oh, so he mentioned, we were talking about the retro engineering or whatever. So I asked, is there a whole UFO? And he said there's definitely parts. He's definitely seen parts, but there's, he says there could be one that is together, that's not disassembled, but usually they take it apart anyway, even if they do have it intact, and and they study it from there. So that was interesting. I asked if the base acknowledged the fact that it was haunted. And, there's many claims that it was haunted. He said it's definitely not haunted, which I find very interesting. But he says it's definitely not haunted. He said lots of weird shit, but usually it's a side effect of machines and tests that they do there. So
Yeah.
it's not ghost, it's science, but it's just strange science. I asked if the Roswell debris and the bodies were transported there. And whatnot. He said Roswell was an emergency thing. Nothing stayed there long. Most is spread out between research facilities. So they did take the stuff there because they didn't have anywhere else to put it, but redistributed it, is basically what he's saying. I asked if they've experimented with time travel. He said they're not that stupid. They realize that they're too stupid to try that. Of course, there's scientists who think cracking dimensions is a great idea, so it doesn't apply to all scientists. So there can be one-offs that do, but as a whole, they don't try to experiment with time travel.
Okay.
Um, then we asked if there was anything religiously groundbreaking. He said that was funny. He said I was present for the results of a few things that make people say Jesus fucking Christ, but religious, no. And I'm like, okay.
Well, I would argue that. I would argue that if any of this is even slightly that was, I mean, so
Religion.
you had asked me to give you some of these questions. The reason that I asked for the religious one, because of course, dude, if there's anything even remotely associated with alien life form, then there's religious significance to
Oh
it.
yeah, it would. Oh yeah, it
Are
would be.
you fucking
It would
kidding me? So
fuck with your
that
mind if you were religious at all.
right. So that answer should be an automatic yes, and the fact that he said no, it's like
I
what?
think that what he kind of took the question as if we found, which is kind of what I explained, was there anything religiously groundbreaking? I think what he thought is if we have found like proof of God or proof of religion is, I think, is how he took it. So that's how he answered.
Well, or anti-proof by the fact that there's beings more advanced and intelligent of us that come from other places.
Yeah,
You
true.
know what I mean? That aren't one of the 12 tribes of Israel. You know,
Maybe I'll ask him that in a follow-up question just to make sure.
that somehow escaped Noah's flood by fucking flying away on their ships. You know, like,
True.
uh,
That's true.
yeah, or I don't know. Anyway, I
That's
can go off
okay.
on tangent about that.
That's all right. So I asked him, he's definitely confirmed the underground bases. He says that, yeah, they're absolutely there. I asked if there were bodies, and he said that he's never seen any, but he's heard rumors. But to his knowledge, there aren't. Um, and then I asked if, I explained how, people think that Area 51 is just a cover up for Wright Pat, and that Wright Pat's more, crazy. And his answer was, there's nothing that holds my interest in Nevada. There used to be a lot more in Ohio, but a lot has been spread out. So his implication with everything is just that it's not just one place that is important or of interest, is that they're all important or of interest. But that was pretty much the extent of the conversation. We will, meet on another day, and I will get more information, hopefully. He mentioned that it's hard. There was a lot of stuff he couldn't answer, or didn't feel comfortable answering at the time, which is understandable. But I'm excited. I'm excited to have this new person. I've got, no reason. This isn't, like I said, it's not like ginormous dick guy. This is like a real everyday older working person. This is a normal person, I think. I hope.
Well, the one thing that I have to say that sounds the most true to me, not that I'm saying that there's elements of that sound like bullshit, but because there are, if you do even a cursory internet search, you see stories about the base and the museum being haunted, and
Yeah.
the notion that it's not haunted at all, that these are just byproducts of these experiments that are happening inside the base itself. That to me sounds like ridiculously real, like almost
I
like common
agree.
sense real at this point. Because I mean, it's if you want to try to find, and I know this is something that you talk about with your documentary a lot, but you want to try to find like a unified theory of like strangeness, right?
Right.
Something that kind of ties together ghosts and aliens and Sasquatches and demons and all of this stuff. How do we explain all of this shit, right? Because we have a unified, I guess, or maybe we don't even have a unified theory of explanation that that leans towards them not being real, right? But like, let's try to come up with a paranormal explanation or a conspiracy to end all conspiracies that kind of touches upon all these things and finds room for everything. And the easiest thing that you can fold into each other is that ghosts as we perceive them are just not fucking real. Like that stuff doesn't make sense, that it's not necessarily
In the traditional sense, right? It's not.
yeah, exactly. In the religious sense, that it's someone's spirit. Because if that was true, there would be literally ghosts on top of ghosts on top of
Everywhere,
ghosts
right.
everywhere, and they'd all be knocking over fucking cups of water and fucking with light bulbs, and this is not happening, right?
Right.
So like, so you need to kind of parse it down, and is it like, well, is it just that your grandma's a ghost and that's the only one? Or like,
Right.
it's like one out of every fucking billion dead people become a ghost, and it just
Right.
happens to be your fucking Uncle Lenny. Like, what are the chances? No, it's more likely that there's some kind of echo, energy echo, or something like that, or dimensional thing, or
Right, maybe
you
you pass
know,
on and you're supposed to go to a different dimension, some don't, for whatever reason. Who knows?
right,
Whatever.
the whole shadow person thing. Like, I mean, that's a whole different fucking hallway that we can stumble
Absolutely.
down.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's like I feel like all that stuff is more closely tied in with dimensional experiments or energy experiments, or science, that than you know your dead grandparents or something. I don't know.
Well, right, and it's like, the ghost thing is so it's so widely believed. Again, this is, it's been on Ghost Hunters. If it's been on Ghost Hunters, it's got to be real. And I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I'm
it's
very
it's
cynical
it's
about ghosts.
it's baby's first paranormal fucking experience as ghosts or something, or
But well, I mean, it's a, but it's a big deal. I mean, it's in all the, we've got Haunted Ohio books and all kinds of, it's on national lists even. It's widely believed that it's haunted there. So if this person, was going to approach me to talk about these things and they just simply wanted to lie, then you would think they would try to be as shocking as possible. And one of those shocking factors would be to admit that there's ghosts there. Instead, he just dismisses it entirely and says, "No, that's not what's going on. It's science."
right.
And so that's very interesting to me because that'd be an easy thing to be like, well, yeah, there is, because I'd have no reason to believe that it's not, you know, because everybody else believes that it is. So,
So there's
interesting.
this guy in Chicago called Richard Crow, who's super. The guy might be fucking dead by now, but back in the day, he was like super famous for like doing these ghost tours, and he would
Is
take
he
you by the
related to
side of the
Russell?
Russell Crowe. No, he's definitely not Australian. Um, when you do these ghost tours and stuff, and he was speaking at the local community college, and my friend's mom took us there. We were like in 8th grade at the time. Little did I know that years later I would go there for like 10 years to get an associate's degree. But we went there, and he was telling the story about, he had pictures of like orbs and shit, and like all that stuff that they bust out. And I wasn't being skeptical at all. I was just kind of listening. And he told me the story about a guy that was in World War II that was a pilot, and he would take pictures of his fellow flyers. And sometimes if they had halos above their head, sometimes when the pictures would come back, they'd have halos above their head, and those were the people that would like die the next day. And this guy could see auras and stuff, and he knew which one of his pilot friends were going to die before they did. And I remember I like raised my hand, and he was like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Why didn't he tell him?"
Wow. Yeah, that's a good point.
And he was like, "Why didn't he tell him? He couldn't just tell them." And I was like,
Why not?
"Yeah, he could." And he was like, he's supposed to go up to his bunkmate and say, "Hey, you're gonna die. Don't fly tomorrow. There's a chance that you're gonna be shot down."
Yeah.
And I'd be like, "Yeah." And he was like, and like he tried to dismiss me as being like this idiotic kid, but I was like looking around at the rest of the room, like, right? Like, did I ask the world's stupidest question or the most obvious one?
That's a
Because it
really
felt
good
to me like I asked the most fucking obvious question in the world. Like, if you had like foreknowledge of somebody's death, wouldn't you warn them?
somebody
Like,
that
or
you
wouldn't
cared
you?
about, even your buddies,
Or
your
at some
friends.
point, wouldn't you start experimenting and being like, well, what if I say something? Then does it skip a per like, I don't know. Instead of like not saying anything about it and then writing a book fucking 20 years later, like, okay, like that makes fucking sense,
He's
you
gonna
know?
make, I mean, it's pretty easy, after the fact to be like, oh, I knew that they were gonna die.
Right. Yeah. Talk
I'm
about Monday
I'm
morning.
so torn about ghosts. I don't. I've talked about this. I've got different opinions on it, and I'm undecided. Really, I am. And it's not that I haven't seen things or had weird things happen to me. I mean, I'm haunted, so it's kind of weird for me to say that. It's not that I question their existence, um, but I question the how and the specifics, I guess. And I think that that's smart. what it means exactly, but
I have a ghost story. You want to hear a ghost
okay,
story real quick? All right.
sure.
So one of the houses I lived in for a good portion of my life was directly across the street from a cemetery, meaning like there was no like house across the street from me.
Mhm.
Across the street from my like it was my house, the curb, a street that went one way, and then like a fence, and then like gravestones, right?
Oh, okay.
So um people used to always be like, "Oh my god, you live across the street from a cemetery?" I'm like, "Yeah, the black parties suck." Like it never phased me. Like we moved in there when I was like in 8th grade, so I was old enough to know like, not really be freaked out. But also when I got a little bit older and I knew how like the world worked, it also stood to reason that at some point I where I lived had probably been part of the cemetery, and they had moved shit around for zoning to squeeze one more city block in. You know what I mean? Like, so I didn't necessarily live in the cemetery, but I always knew that like there's a very good chance that like, you know, remains were disturbed to build this house. Um, and when I was out of high school, I dated a girl that, of course, thought she was fucking psychic and had fucking supernatural abilities, and would come over, and like she was so fascinated by my house in my basement, and be like, I feel a presence down there. I'm like, that's me trying to fuck you, like, and she was like, I'm very sensitive to these things, and I just get this feeling when I'm over at the house that there's a presence. I'm like, that's my testosterone reaching out to you. You're smelling my pheromones in the air. Like, give into the fucking D. And I never saw anything, and I never felt anything, and I never thought anything was up until um at one point I moved out, and I bounced around for like 2-3 years and lived in different places, and then I moved back. When I moved back, my mom had already my mom used to sell Mary Kay as like a side hustle,
Okay.
and she had converted my bedroom into like this Mary Kay fucking stronghold of like makeup and shit, right? So like when I moved back in, she's like, "Well, you can't have your bedroom back, but you can sleep in the basement if you want." Okay, fine. So now I'm actually sleeping in the basement every night, and I woke up more than once convinced that there was fucking shit in the room with me. And granted, you're waking up, and I
Sure.
had probably been drinking or fucking smoking, banana peels all day long, and then passed out, and then woke up. But there was one night in particular I remember, because I got hopped in LiveJournal and wrote a post about it. But where like I woke up, and it was like there was this floating mass above me that was just like a cloud of smoke, and like faces kept trying to come out of it and like would go back in.
Weird.
And yeah, and and I was like, holy shit. And then I, of course, like passed out, and then you wake up 3 hours later and everything's fine, and you're like, oh, that was weird. But yeah, that was really it. And I that place should have been ground zero for any kind of fucking supernatural bullshit. And really there wasn't too much stuff that ever happened in that house. But I guess there was that. But I could have been fucking dreaming or something. I know I wasn't dreaming, but it definitely could have been drug induced, or I was just half awake and had shit in my eyes, and
Don't
you
you
know,
hate that? Like, now that like I've really dived into this world of things, I like think back to all these like weird times that I had doing drugs, and I'm like, is that just because I was high, or something
oh my god,
else? We'll get into it one day. I have a weird story from my childhood about ghosts. So I'll tell you about it. So me and my dad, we went and we ended up moving into this like really old, like creepy house or whatever. And it was haunted by four ghosts. And my dad, he at the time he was very upset because he had lost his partner to early death, and he was very upset. So he started working as a ghost psychiatrist. And um,
what?
you catch it on yet?
How do you get paid for that? Who pays you?
Well, the people that own the houses. So we moved into this house because this lady wanted us to try to get rid of the ghosts that were in the house. So we moved in, and so anyway, we go there or whatever, and I ended up making really good friends with the one ghost, and we found this like portion of this house or whatever, and it was pretty crazy. I guess this like this ghost, his dad that lived there before, he was like this inventor, and he was like working on this crazy machine. Are you catching on yet at all?
That you're fucking with me? I was like,
You were here
oh
for
my,
it?
I was like, oh my,
It's
no,
not a
I was,
Casper, Pat.
no, no. I was listening to this and I was thinking to myself, you're going to have to stop doing the show at some point. because people are going to start to realize she's fucking off her rocker. No, thank you. I am so relieved right now that's the code, that's the
I thought it's for sure. As soon as I said ghost psychiatrist, you're gonna be like, "Are you talking? Is this Casper?" I thought you'd know, but apparently Pat doesn't know.
I mean, I think, hey, this goes back to something I said. Like, we've never been in each other's kitchen. Like, I'm relatively sure that you're on the level, but at the same time, like, I don't know how fucking nuts you are. You don't know how fucking nuts I am either. We both know each other's kind of nuts. You know what I mean? Like, the exact level of nuts, like, no, neither one of us.
I mean, the only thing I'm certain of is that you have nuts. So, I mean, that's about it, really.
I used to, until
I
about
used
3
to.
years ago.
That's rude. No, and I wasn't going to tell it first. I was having a hard time keeping it together. I'm so terrible at acting. I tell everybody that.
No, that was pretty good.
Oh, good.
Well, you know what? No, because you know what? Here's the thing: is that I didn't know if you were acting or if you were
because my life's so fucking weird. It wouldn't be surprising.
Right.
I didn't have a ghost psychiatrist dad.
I mean, that's when that's when my bullshit detector started to go off. Hey, you're the same one that showed up with the fucking Sasquatch DNA guy 2 weeks ago. All right. So fucking, you vouched for that guy. You know, I can only imagine who we're talking to next week. Like,
oh God,
Jesus
you're in for a treat,
Christ.
Like this is like that.
No, I mean, I'll roll with the punch. It's all good, you know. But like,
I'm excited about it. I think it's gonna be fun.
I think it's gonna be good too. I think it's gonna be completely different. I don't want to make our audience think that it's gonna be a repeat of that.
No, it's not. No, absolutely not. You guys will like it. You'll have a lot of fun with it. But anyway, back to Wright, Pat. There are a lot of different just so many people that have come out of the woodwork and have disclosed different things, and there's a lot. There's so much. Obviously we can't, like most of the time, we can't cover it in one episode. It took me a week to just research all of this, so you guys will definitely have to check out different details. I highly suggest checking out what is his first name? I highly suggest checking out Leonard Stringfield. He specifically specializes in UFO crashes. He studied them. He maintains that pretty much every single UFO crash that there's ever been goes to Wright Pat, and he's done deep dives into it. I think he's pretty sure he's dead now. Yeah, he definitely is. But he's very knowledgeable. He's got a lot of writings on it. I think there's a documentary on YouTube you can watch about him and his research. But he's, definitely got a lot of information out there. So if you want to do some further reading, like I said, Leonard Stringfield, he's a good one to go to. And then just Google. I mean, really, Google tells you a lot. It doesn't tell you everything, but it gives you a good in, because there's so much. You got ghost stories and secret military experiments and aliens and UFOs, and it'll at least give you a good head start into diving into, the world of military bases. But I definitely find it more fascinating. I think that there's more evidence that there's high strangeness going on at Wright Pat Air Force Base than there is at Area 51. Personally.
Sure.
Personally.
Well, maybe that's just because we have more access to it too, but True. Definitely there's more like on the record stuff about Wright Pat than there is Area 51.
Well, right, again, Project Blue Book, it's the most right. It's the biggest piece of evidence that we have as regular people. So I mean, just going off of that alone, I think it speaks volumes, personally. If you don't think that they're just not doing that stuff anymore, I mean, then I got a bridge to sell you. Yeah. I got some land, because Obviously,
Why
they
would they
are.
stop? Because yeah, they
Right.
didn't draw any concrete conclusions.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
e-
Exactly.
even if you believe this new narrative that's kind of being put out there that we really don't know what's going on, and that's why we've been so secretive about it because we don't want the public to lose faith in our military by admitting that we don't know what's going on with this shit. That seems to be the narrative lately.
Right.
And even if that was the case, then that would it's all the more reason for them to continue researching this
Continue.
stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's pretty much my final thoughts on it. You got anything else to add in there, Pat?
I got nothing. Oh yeah, check out Got It by Voices and Megadeth Hangar 18.
And the movie and from 1981, Hangar 18.
I haven't seen the movie, so I can't vouch for it. It might
I
suck.
haven't either,
But
so we'll see. See how that goes. All right, guys. Well, we will be back next Wednesday.